From our studios, this time in Ohio, Cleveland, and Tampa, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30. I'm Philip, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Scott Swenson of Scott Swenson Creative Development.
Cool.
The big news this week, of course, is that Universal Orlando unveiled some details for Super Nintendo World, which is coming to Epic Universe. We don't want to talk too much about this because if, of course, listeners to the show, I'm sure most of you, probably all of you, have been to one of the Super Nintendo worlds already, so you are aware of what this is. Okay, you haven't, Scott? Are you serious? You haven't been to
No,
any of them?
I haven't. I
Any
have
of
not
them?
been to a super. Nope. I'm sorry. This is gonna make me sound like a total jerk.
Oh,
I'm too busy to play in theme parks. I just work in them. But I have not. I've studied them. I've seen exactly how they, what's going on. But it's also a brand that is that I'm a little too old for, to be completely honest. Does not strike the home chord with me that it does with some other people. But at the same time, I'm very excited to see that it's coming, and I know that it's going to be a huge element for driving attendance at Epic Universe.
Okay, well, I'm still reeling from that you've never
The
been
fact
there,
that I haven't
but
experienced it yet.
okay, right. So
Nope.
I will say the thing to me about this land, and from the press release here, we have everything that we've seen before, which is Bowser's Challenge, Yoshi's Adventure, the Toadstool Cafe, the Yoshi Snack Island and Turbo Boost Treats, One Up Factory, Mario Motors, meet and greets, and of course the iconic green pipe, which you're entering. So that part is all going to be, I think, stuff that we've at least seen before in videos, or you've seen what it looks like. The big piece that they're launching Epic Universe with, of course, is the Donkey Kong Country, which we just talked about how Japan's is, of course, being delayed, and so we will have an idea by the time Epic opens as to what the Donkey Kong area is going to look like, because it will have opened in Japan, so we'll be able to see videos at least of what it looks like. The big ride there is going to be the Minecart Madness, and it says here that guests will hop into minecart and careen through the jungle to help Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong protect the coveted golden banana on this first of its kind family coaster. Utilizing an unprecedented ride system, innovative technology, and a unique coaster design, Minecart Madness will send drivers on a thrilling adventure where they will experience the jaw-dropping maneuvers that they've seen Donkey Kong and the minecarts perform in the video games, including getting blasted out of a barrel, seemingly jumping over gaps as they speed along a rickety track, and so much more. So that's the big unique element of that land so far that we know about that's going to be different. And I will just mention the biggest takeaway for me in terms of how this land is just different overall for all theme park stuff is, I think Universal's ability, it's like, to me, it was Harry Potter. We've talked about that, where Harry Potter was the first thing where Universal really came into the scene, where people were like, oh, this is Disney, if not better, to some audiences who resonate with that IP. I think they did the same with Super Mario World when it launched. That was a clear push for them. And it's because it's so difficult to translate a video game, a cartoon, into reality, because, even speaking from the lighting world and the color world, those light, there's no there's no sources. I mean, the light is just, everything is lit and there's no sources for it, and these colors just do not exist really, in the real world. I mean, there's so much that doesn't exist that you really have to, it's artificial. It's that line, like basically walking the uncanny valley. Like, you're trying to create something that it looks real, and that it's a real video game, but it also needs to look like a video game. And that is a really, really difficult line to walk. And I think Universal, that to me is the thing that these gaming worlds, I think, are on the level of design complexity of Harry Potter, if not more design complex, because of what they need to accomplish. And I think Universal, again, kicked it out of the park with these, and that's why they're putting them everywhere. And they're wildly popular, rightfully so, because they have achieved this design. I mean, Scott, I really hope you really should go. I mean, It's
Oh,
breathtaking.
absolutely. Oh, I
It's
will. I will.
breathtaking.
I'll get there. But again, I think that despite the fact that the IP does not resonate with me as much as it does with gazillions of other
Yep.
people on the planet, I do recognize the power of the IP, and I also want to just kind of build off of what you just said, Philip, which is, in anything animated, the laws of
Yep.
physics don't apply. So when it comes to either lighting or I've seen some of the design schematics for the track
Yep.
jumping
Yep.
moment
Yep.
in the coaster, which is
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
incredible. I mean, it's pretty exciting because they're creating a complete sense of fantasy and perceived danger that is more effective just based on what I've seen, looks like it's going to be more effective than anything that has ever been done before. I know there have been tracks on coasters where it looks like you're heading towards a gnarled track and then all of a sudden you go backwards or whatever. But you don't go backwards, you go
Yep.
straight over it. And the technology behind it looks really, really cool. I can only imagine from a lighting standpoint. I can remember back when I was in college, and one of my assignments was we were given famous paintings and had to create lighting designs to replicate the lighting in the paintings. Well, just like animation, in paintings you don't have the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
Light can bend in
Mm-hmm.
ways that it doesn't normally bend. It can emit from places that it doesn't normally emit from. And so to your point, Philip, the challenge of creating something that is created as either a game or an animated series, it doesn't exist in 3 dimensions or tangible dimensions at all, where physics do apply, would be a huge challenge. So I'm excited to see that again they're replicating this and making it successful in multiple locations. And the question is, you've always heard me say, what are they going to do that it becomes the draw that you can't experience anywhere else? And of course, the whole
Yep.
Donkey Kong
Yep.
overlay is exactly that for
Yep.
Epic Universe. So it sounds like they're doing everything right. They're creating something that they've had great success with elsewhere, and they're going to bring it
Mm-hmm.
plus. They say the best way to pitch a new concept in any form of entertainment is to say it's just like something, only it has this added to it. And that's exactly
Yep.
what they're doing here, which is great.
Well, all that being said, Universal's earnings did slip during their last earnings call. Let's talk about that a little bit. Even though I think this is important to cover, but I'm not sure that it's really a big story for us in the insiders, because we understand the context of what's happening. But I think it's more for
Mhm.
like Wall Street that doesn't read all of these press releases and understand what they're building. But let's see. This is I'm reading some excerpts here from Theme Park Insider, who is excerpting pieces of the earnings call. But it says Comcast reported that its theme park segment saw a 1.5% increase in revenue, so that's good for the quarter. However, higher operating costs drove the adjusted EBITDA down 3.9%, which is that's a down. We continue, and the quote here from Comcast is that we continue to see strong underlying demand in both Hollywood and Japan, where healthy attendance and per capita levels were once again driven by the success of Super Nintendo World. We just talked about that. Building on our momentum,
Yep.
later this year, we're opening our newest Nintendo-themed land, Donkey Kong Country, which we just talked about, which will increase the size of the Super Nintendo World in Japan by 70%. It's a big expansion. Switching gears to Orlando, we
Yep.
started to feel some pressure on attendance levels late in the first quarter, which tends to occur in tandem with the ebbs and flows of the new attractions in the market, which we've also talked about, the shoulder season concept. Right now, we happen
Hmm.
to be lapping the multi-year surge in attendance from our opening of new attractions in prior periods, but we remain confident about our longer-term growth opportunities, especially as we look ahead to next year with the opening of Epic Universe. Epic will enable us to offer a full week's vacation experience to even more guests. Universal also blamed the negative impact from weakness on the Japanese yen against the dollar for driving the decline in earnings for theme parks, which otherwise would have been flat for the quarter. So think he just repeated things we've talked about on the show here already. I think the thing I highlighted in this notes was his last statement there, which that it will enable a full week's vacation. Scott has talked about this before. It's about the concept we've talked about forever, which is Disney wants to own your entire day, and if they can creep into your phones and onto your TV and put you to sleep at night, they would like to do that too. But Universal has not been able to capitalize on the full week of guests visiting because they haven't had the offerings to balance that out, and now they will. And I think that is a huge, I think a lot of, for us, especially locals, and for us in the industry, it's, I often think that we have a different view of things because we've been there so many times, we worked with them, like we're in the weeds, we're thinking about how this land is going to be different and the textures and the color and the lighting and all that. But from a macro sense, they're saying, look, people that have never been to Orlando before, which is a lot of people, and have never been here, they're now going to be able to do a Universal only vacation to Orlando. And that is a huge deal.
Right. Where every dollar spent goes
Yeah.
into Universal's pocket.
Yeah.
I will say that this is a huge this is hugely important. They have been adding without a great deal of hoopla. They have been adding additional
Mhm.
hotels on Universal property. There have been press releases, and if you're in the industry, you know that they're happening. But there hasn't been a hey, look, we're opening a new hotel, because they want to keep all the focus on Epic Universe. I will say the one thing I am curious to see when it comes to the I want to capture every dime that you spend while you are in Orlando. The one thing I am curious to see is because of the location of Epic Universe in comparison to the rest of the Universal properties, because it is a separate entity. You actually have to leave property in order to get to it. And I'm assuming they are from the hotels are going to be providing shuttles and transport, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But um, I am curious because there is still that I'm going to call it creature comfort, the creature comfort aspect. One of the things about Disney property, and part of the reason that they installed the Skyliner, the cable car system that connects pretty much everything on property now, was to make it so that you don't have to stop your vacation to get in the car and drive somewhere. You can actually keep your vacation going, especially if you have kids, because riding the Skyline, riding the cable cars from one hotel to a park is super exciting. And it's not like, the kids are screaming in the car because they want to get there. No, they've already started something. It's pre-gate experience or fully immersive experience for the guests. I'm hoping Universal can capture some of that as well. I'm not saying that the park itself, that Epic Universe, is going to be anything less than spectacular. I think it's going to be amazing. But I think that is the one area that, for I'm sure logistical reasons, my guess is they wanted very badly to own the land adjacent to, and someday, who knows, they may. The only challenge is it crosses a couple of major roads, but it's nothing's impossible when you've got the bucks to make it happen. But I think that's the only real challenge, to kind of build off of what Philip just said on we have those of us in the industry get into the weeds and we start talking about texture and how cool the IP is and blah, 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 blah. One of the things that I always tell my clients is I am the guest experience advocate. So I will say, this is a great presentation, or this is a great ride, but it's painfully uncomfortable to sit in, and that's going to lower your ratings. Or getting in here is difficult, or the queue line is dull as dishwater. So you've got to find something to make it interesting and fun. Now, when it comes to queue lines, that's something Universal will probably never have to worry about, because half their experiences ever since opening Wizarding World of Harry Potter, half the experience of any attraction is the queue itself. And it's because they're super richly done and very exciting. But all too often people in the industry go, well, no, we're really just building the ride. We don't need to worry about the queue experience or the blah, blah, blah. No, you do. Because when you're standing there, and I don't have children, but if you're standing next to a family that has, two kids, one of them is 7, one of them is 12, and they have to wait in queue for an hour, there darn well better be something fun for them to do while they're there. So creature comforts are exceedingly important. And I'm hoping that, and I mention that only because of the transportation issue to get to Epic Universe. I'm sure that they have figured that out. I'm sure there is something in the works for people who are staying. And it's clear that they are at least alluding to it in this press release by saying offering guests a full week-long, easier to offer guests a full week-long experience.
And I also think, as we talked about before, all this is within moderation, right? We talked about before how the supply chains have been slowing things down. So it might be a thing where they're not, it maybe that piece won't be figured out at the time of opening, but it's in the plan or in the works, or there's some like design that's, been allocated for that, in some way. Cause again, something like the skyline would be perfect. I mean, you don't want to rely on the vehicles if you can, because things get so congested in Orlando with driving.
You can't control traffic once
Yeah,
you get off
exactly.
property. Yeah, you can't control the
Yeah,
traffic once you get off
exactly.
property.
So,
And the fact that you have to drive across a couple of major
yeah.
roads to get from one property to the other, that's something that is going to be challenging. I would also, if it were Scott's epic universe, which it's not, I would also suggest that you have significantly more. Philip's laughing because it's like, no, but I would suggest that you have significantly more vehicles than you think you need, because waiting for a vehicle at a hotel is they'll sit there for if you have to wait more than half an hour, they'll be like, well, wait, I could have driven there. Why am I sitting here? Why am I sitting here waiting for this bus to take me? And once they get in their car and they get off property, then they're not going to eat on property. Then they're
Yep.
going to say, well, we've got our car. Let's just go over to McDonald's and grab chicken McNuggets for the kids.
Yep.
And then we'll go back to the park. And then they end up not going back to the park.
Yep.
They end up going back to the hotel
Yep.
and swimming in the pool.
That's exactly, that's exactly the bleed that happens, and yeah, especially because, there's so much surrounding it. It's not a very far drive to get to, like a Walgreens, or to get to a thing where you can buy stuff for so much cheaper that's more convenient. So yeah, it's normal.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Let's move over now to Six Flags. So Six Flags, I know we talked about it in the past. They had mentioned this kind of vague investment in technology that they've been touting around for a while, and we finally got some more details on what that specifically is going to look like. I'm going to read through these summaries here, and then we'll talk about them. I'm going to try and go quickly because there are quite a few, but I think there's only a few that matter. So first of all, I think the most important was going to be what they're calling speedy parking, which is a new toll plaza with automated entry that uses computer vision and AI to recognize registered license plates, allowing automatic car entry within 3 seconds. They talk a lot about revamping their mobile apps for easier usage, blah, 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 about the digital wallet, which will enable guests to access their loyalty benefits and use their favorite payment methods via the app, which, to be honest, should feel like they should already be able to do that, and or just let people use Google Wallet. I don't know why that's a thing. New integrated state-of-the-art real-time video and photo capturing technology on the roller coasters. I think the video portion of that could be interesting if they could figure out a way to deliver real-time videos of you on a coaster to a person. Could be pretty cool. Food and beverage self-service kiosks. Now, here's one: food and beverage self-service kiosks. So I think that self-service part, they also talked about ordering food using the NFC technology at tables, so they could just you don't need to have the app for it, so you just order it via the NFC technology, and then it would appear without having to use the app, which I think is also important. And then retail self-checkout options. I think those are the big ones: the food and beverage self-checkout and the retail one. We talked about the retail one previously, where there was a few pilot locations that we're testing where they would have stores where essentially similar to what you see at some airports, where you would just, they're just coded. So you just walk up and you can walk out of them. You scan your card to walk in, and then you pick up the items and you walk out, and it just charges you. Here's the thing that I was thinking, which is something that Scott brings up all the time. And as I was reading this, I couldn't help getting Scott's little voice out of my head, which is that all of these, to me, sound like great ways to eliminate staff. That's what it sounds like to me. Hey, we don't need people at the toll plaza anymore. We don't need people staffing any of our stores anymore. We don't need people doing any of these things. And you know what? Fine. I will say, though, just as I get it. It means less overall. It might be a good thing though, because let me say, for those of you that have not been to Six Flags recently, I struggle to find a good experience for the last time I've been to Six Flags Magic Mountain, and it's more like all of these things are the things that are difficult at Six Flags because they can't get the staff that are reliable enough to be there. And so what happens is your food line to just, get a drink is 20 minutes, and it's ridiculous. And so if they can get rid of all that by just letting you walk in and out, and you don't need to sit there at the toll plaza that backs up all the way to the highway to the 5 for miles. So I do think it can be a good thing, but as Scott always says, it is going to eliminate jobs. There's no way around it. I mean, but that's kind of the point, I guess, because they can't fill the jobs. So here we go.
Well, and the funny thing is, I don't know whether it's going to eliminate jobs as much as it's going to help them with the fact that they can't
fill them anyway.
It will eventually. They can't fill them anyway. So basically, what they're doing is they're eliminating jobs that they can't fill.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense at all, and for those of you who are listening, who are just starting in the theme park industry, it will mean that there are going to be fewer and fewer entry level positions. But I want to make this very, very clear with especially things like merchandise and culinary. It means that their focus will be less and less on people who can punch buttons on a register, and more on people who have great customer service. Because in theory, now I'm not going to say this is necessarily what's going to happen in practice, but in theory, to help overcome what Philip was just talking about of having a good guest experience in the parks, this will mean that the people, because there will always going to be somebody there to assist, to explain the technology, especially at the beginning. Even in the beta testing that's going on in airports really around the country, there's still somebody there to kind of help explain if there's anybody who doesn't quite get it. But what happens is, like, even in the places that are now exclusively paid on kiosks, because there are several stores, several merchandise locations in airports that are like that, they will have 4 self-service kiosks that one person mans. So you can have, the people who don't need help can just go boop, 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 and walk out. I love that. Because that's what I do. I even make that little sound. Boop, boop. Anyway, so it means that the people who are working there, it's going to be far more important that they have great customer service experience, that they have great customer service abilities, so that the technology is actually making a difference. The parking technology, this boggles my mind that this has not happened. If they can capture on a toll road, I mean, in Florida there are no toll booths anymore. They don't exist. It's all pay by plate. And I'm assuming it's that way in other places around the country and perhaps around the world. It's all pay by plate. I don't know why that just can't be implemented in all theme parks.
That was one that I read, and I was like, sometimes you forget, because you're so used to it. I think, even at LAX, our new economy parking at LAX, you can go online and reserve the spot, and then when you drive up, like, it reads your plate and it like welcomes you and just opens it. And I'm like, here's the thing, like, I think we forget that they don't have this. There are still, like, the majority of theme parks in the US, you still drive up where there is a person who like asks you, and it's the whole process, because they're like, do you have a pass, or what is going on? Yeah, it's crazy. And it's things like this where it kind of wakes you up to realize, oh my gosh, like, what?
Yeah. Like I said, if I can drive down the tollway here in Florida at 55 miles or 65 or 70 miles an hour, depending on how late I am, if I can drive that on the tollway and it just automatically takes it off my Sun Pass or bills me at home for it, all of the fact that even that they know that I have a Sun Pass, which is prepaid, or if they don't, it's a little bit more, but they bill me at home. So that's the difference between having a season pass, and not having a season pass. And it's all based on recognizing the plates, and if there are people who don't want to do that, great, have one lane open, let them wait for hours. But for the rest of us, just drive on through, put it on my card, done. Love it. And maybe it's something that you just beta test with only pass holders, And that kind of
Yeah.
that's
That
kind of the
is
way this
sounding
is
like that.
sounding
Yeah.
here
You
is
have a
beta,
registered
yeah,
car,
beta test it with
basically.
pass
Yeah.
holders. So you have a registered car, but again, that's what a license plate
Yeah.
is a registration for your
Yeah.
car. So, all they have to do is tap into, DMV, and they know who you are, they know where you live. It is, it's the same thing I talked about years and years ago when they first started doing Disney Magic Bands. It's basically LoJack. They know where you are, they can find you, and they
Yeah.
can charge you.
Yeah.
Done. Make it
Yeah.
simple.
Okay. That's it on the new technology. I think we're excited about all those. I don't want to belabor the point too much. Let's move on to, I think, our last story.
Yeah, you want to move on
I
because
know.
you were just rubbing elbows
With
with, like,
crazy people.
fancy schmancy
Okay,
people.
so
Crazy people.
Airbnb announced their summer release series. I was there in person. I got to go cover the event for another outlet, and I was there in person. Let me tell you, Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, is so handsome. That was my big takeaway. Is I was like,
Okay, and thank you. That's the
oh
end of the
my
show because
god!
Philip got to
It's
say
like
that he was so handsome. Okay,
I
done. Peace
I
out.
was wholly unprepared for the event. I didn't know it was going to be the deal it was going to be. I thought I was just going to cover some stuff. But anyway, the thing where this ties into themed entertainment is that essentially what Airbnb is doing, they're calling them icons, and it's 11 experiences that is celebrating culture from music through sports through entertainment and all that. So all cultural. So they have 11 they've launched so far. They're going to be launching more, and this is a summer launch series. And there are three of particular interest, I think, for our audiences. First, they partnered with Disney and to celebrate Up, the 15th anniversary, where they recreated the house from Up. And it is insane. I just can't even comprehend it still. I'm still baffled by it. But essentially, the house is built in New Mexico, and it is a replica, like a 2D detail replica. Everything has been recreated in there, and it's a replica. It does float. There is a giant crane that is usually used to lift wind turbines into position that is attached to the house. There's 8,000 balloons that are attached to the top of it, and the crane cables are like hidden behind the balloons. And essentially, that they had to build the house out of a steel support structure so that it could actually be lifted. And just to clarify, though, you are not like sleeping in the air. I posted this video. A lot of people are like, "Where does the poop go?" And I'm like, "Calm down, guys. Like you arrive, and it's like up in the air, and then like they lower it down or whatever, and then you like sleep on the ground. Like, come on, be sensible here. Like, good grief." So
I just love the fact that the
yeah,
question was,
I'm
where
like,
does the
come
poop
on,
go?
people, stop. It does come with its own wilderness explorer who greets you and will take you through little challenges throughout the day that are all themed to it. The other ones that are of interest to our group, of course, is they recreated the X-Men mansion and they painted it to look like a comic book. And it does come with like a personal trainer, basically, who trains you in like your X-Men training, which is bananas. And they've recreated the headquarters from Inside Out too, where each bedroom is themed to a different emotion that you can stay in, and you have the emotion console, and all this kind of thing. I just think it's so in our alley because it's not only is it combining themed spaces, which we're all about, but it also they're making the effort to make it immersive and make it to tie the experience to the connection by having the wilderness explorer there and having the explorer take you through the things. Each one, having the trainer there to help discover your X-Men powers and train you through what a routine would look like for them. They've really put thought into all the details of this, which are all absolutely incredible. The final detail, of course, is that in a very Willy Wonka fashion, these are all free or very cheap, like under $100 for a whole stay. And you go online, which you can now, and reserve the first three, and you essentially apply. You write a little personal essay and you put that in there, and they choose. I think each location will accept up to 20 different groups, and they'll choose a group, and they give you a golden ticket to show that you have been chosen to stay in one of these places. So there's no criteria. They're not saying what the criteria is, but essentially, yeah, anybody, even right now, our listeners right now can go and apply to stay at the Up House or the X-Man Mansion right now through May 13th. And you put in, it's really easy. You can do it on the website or on the app, and you select the time that you would prefer, and you write your personal essay and you submit, and that's it. And the Up House is free.
So what is the sustainable project
Oh, it's
for this in
not.
the long run, Philip? Because I mean,
It's
you were
not.
there.
No, I couldn't.
There's no
Here's the thing. I
sustainability
hope
at all.
Airbnb isn't listening, but they probably are.
So it's a marketing. So
Yes,
it's a marketing ploy.
I couldn't
So
get
it's a
an
marketing
answer
ploy.
from anybody other than Brian is a designer by trade and loves to create experiences, and that this fits with the Airbnb ethos of kind of, you know, discovering new places. And I'm like, those aren't business plan, like those are not answering my question. Actually, those are like those are, so basically what I'm hearing is, and I talked to some of the reporters by me, my sense is that this is all a branding play. Like they're just creating these spaces, and it's not
Brand
and it's not the
reinforcement.
first time they've done it. If you remember last year, they recreated Trek's swamp for this same type of project. So it really seems to me like they're trying to lean into the fact that their CEO is a designer by trade, and they're trying to me, they're trying to bring Airbnb closer to like that Disney and Universal thing by being like, here's, you know, we're capable of encouraging possibility. I did ask, no one gave me answers again. I did kind of was like, might there be a future potential to partner with Universal or somebody and help, you know, create, I mean, look at all the expansions Universal's doing. Couldn't you easily see where they're going to go to Texas and they're going to do some Airbnb experiences around the same area that the Texas park is, or in Vegas or whatnot? No, but obviously nobody would give me any answers at all. So,
Well, and maybe Airbnb would like to buy Galactic Star Cruiser.
right, yeah.
But anyway, because that's exactly what this is. That's
Yeah.
exactly what this is. This is fully immersive. Spend the night. Stay in the world. Stay in the world that has been created for you. And I think that it kind of ties back to what we talked about earlier in the show. Is, you know, stay in the world of Disney. Stay in the world of Universal. And this is stay in the house of Up. But unfortunately, we can't stay in the world of our show because we're out of time. So on behalf of Philip Hernandez and myself, Scott Swenson, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30. And we will see all of you. Plus, you each are required to bring a friend next time. But we will see all of you next weekend or next week. Bye.